evening. Okay. So it's great to see you again. This is Katelyn. She used to be the one in charge of this for a few editions, and now she's here as a mentor to do her job. We love her.
Thank you, Carmen. Isn't she awesome? Okay. So let's get to it. Today we're going to go over first, we're going to talk about business plans and business models in the context of the Lean Startup Canvas, which Carmen told me y'all got the week before, correct? Okay. If at any point I speak too quickly or you don't understand what I'm saying, please interrupt me. Or if you have questions, that was better. Yeah, although I can do it later. All right, so let's get started. Your business plan. The way I've kind of always understood this is there's 3 steps to this, and a lot of the time you have people who jump to the end. What does the end look like? The end looks like a 40-page document that's really boring, that nobody wants to read, that basically you made to make yourself feel good about all of your brilliant ideas. And most of it's made up, right? So, how do we avoid, on one hand, this exceptionally large document, and on the other hand, when it is our time to put pen to paper, how do we ensure that the contents that we're putting in there are good? So that's when we come to the Lean Startup Canvas. The way I understand this is there are 3 phases. The Lean Startup Canvas is mostly for you guys to organize your thoughts. There's a second phase, which once you have all of your thoughts written down, some people call it a feasibility study, some people call it validation. Carmen's going to explain much better how to actually go through those steps. But then there's the period of really validating for yourself, is everything that I think true, that I have here, actually true? And then once you have those proofs of concept, then you still don't write a business plan. You wait until someone asks you to, and then you make it. Because here's what happens a lot of time. You write your 40-page business plan, and then someone goes, yeah, I want an executive summary, a marketing study, and a feasibility study. And you're like, well, I have a technological analysis that I don't know what to do with now. So, moral of the story is, take everything at its time and don't jump steps and don't create literature until someone is asking you to publish the novel. All right, first step, pain. Pain is you really, I'll start with the beginning. The first thing you have to understand about your pain is not everyone understands your pain. We had a really great team who we love dearly, who are currently mentors of ours, who what they did was they took pages and pages and pages of HTML code and they consolidated it for you in one line. How do you explain to someone who doesn't understand code what the significance and importance of that is? The moral of this story is that a lot of your guys' projects are probably going to be too technical for some people. And even if they're not too technical, if you have a finance startup and you try to explain it to someone who's really a hippie, you have to be able to take what it is you do and explain it in the stupidest terms humanly possible. And even better, if you guys one day look for financing, you have to be able to explain it to a finance person in the most numerical terms humanly possible. So always keep audience in mind. There's an accelerator, what they do for one of their practices is they make the team's pitch to 65-year-old grandmothers. And if a 65-year-old is incapable of understanding what it is you do, you're probably pretty good at explaining it. Once you're able to take your concept and put it into a clear, concise message and explanation of what it is you do, then what you have to do is you have to make it hurt and hurt a lot. There are a lot of people who don't know your sector. So you can sit there and say that there's a demand, but you really have to put them in the place of the person who is experiencing this, especially when the person that you're talking to isn't your target market. A good example of this is explaining big data to anyone who doesn't understand what big data is. It's very abstract. But when you tell someone filling Bernabeu with grains of sand is the amount of stuff that we have to cipher through, it helps them, even though they're never going to really understand what big data is, conceptualize what it is that you're dealing with. And then once you make them feel the pain, you take the knife and twist it a little more. You basically just make your problem sound as apocalyptic as humanly possible. And then you come rushing in with the solution. So when you're addressing your solution, there's a few key points to keep in mind. One is you have to address how the problem is currently being solved. If no one else is solving your problem, you should be worried, because it's probably not that big of a problem. That means being aware of if you're revolutionizing the way that something is done, being aware of the old school way. If you have competitors, being aware of how they're solving the problem. And then being aware about how your solution is not only better, it's more intuitive, it's going to win, it's going to be easy to implement, everyone's going to love it, etc. Facebook wasn't the first. There was a MySpace that had nothing to do with music prior to Facebook. So you can come in against a big competitor with a new solution, and even a very similar solution, but you have to be able to explain why that is better than what exists currently. And then, once you explain how you're going to fix the problem, you need to explain how you're going to make money doing it. I think that it's kind of an error in the startup community right now to put everyone into the same box. And by the same box, I mean, there's a big difference between having a hobby, which is my webpage, my platform, my solution, I don't know what. Then there's, I want to be self-employed, which is, I have this and I want to monetize it a little bit, and I maybe want to live off of it, or I want to supplement my income with this semi-hobby, semi-business that I have. And then there's a small business, and then there is a investable, scalable, investor-worthy business. And I want you guys to understand that everyone talks about the last one, but if yours is one of the first three, have that clear. Have that clear and make sure that people know that, you know, yours is a little bit different, and make sure that you yourself have that clear, because there is a lot of, when something is a hobby and you don't care about making a dime out of it and it's just your baby project, that's yours, it's untouchable, take feedback, don't take feedback, let it go. But if your plan is to become a multi-millionaire with investors and to have a great big exit in a few years and to be on the cover of TechCrunch, then you need to take advice with a grain of salt always, but you need to be much more receptive to it, and you have to be much more willing and open to compromise. So, having said that, we're going to focus on probably what is mostly the latter two groups, mostly the latter group in terms of this. So, what is a business model? I don't know if you guys watch South Park. I love South Park. This is my slide. The underpants gnomes in South Park run around, and they steal everyone's underpants, and then something happens, and there's profit. We feel like we see a lot of startups that know what they're going to do, and they know that they want to be multimillionaires, but get lost a little bit in terms of how to make money doing it. So, we'll all go through what the business models are. It's important to have this vocabulary down a little bit, because this is you can say I make money because people pay me to do this, but any professional investor, any organization that you talk to, these are the keywords. You say, we have an advertising business model, we have a this business model, we have a that business model. Nothing here is going to blow your mind. You guys all know the companies we're about to talk to, you all understand the business models we're about to talk about, but get the lingo down just so that way you understand. And also, don't feel trapped in one business model. Advertising, for example, is a great supplement to other business models, and out of it. So you don't feel like you're locked into one, but understand what yours are, how they work together. For example, advertising. Whenever someone tells me they're going to make money advertising or with click-through rates, the first thing that comes to my mind from an investment standpoint is these people are going to spend a shit ton of money getting a ton of users before we see a dime, which is true. In order to make money advertising, click-through rates, etc., you need to have high quantities of traffic. And high quantities of traffic take a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort, and a lot of really good content to get to. So if this is your business model, anticipate that question ahead of time. And be prepared to respond to how you're either going to get that faster, or you're going to do it better, or you're going to somehow supplement your income through a different business model. before this becomes your primary source of income. Asset sales. Okay, asset sales are easy, right? Amazon. We sell stuff. I don't know if there's any more detail that we really need to get into that. Brokerage. Brokerage is the idea that I'm, as the company, I'm not selling anything. What I'm doing is I'm an intermediary that takes one person who wants to sell, one person who wants to buy. I help put them together, in the case of eBay, through a platform that allows the people who want to buy to bid, and when a transaction occurs, and only when a transaction occurs, I get paid. Licensing. Licensing and subscription often get confused. The best example I've ever heard in terms of how they're different is wedding photographers. A little less so today because of digital cameras, but still the concept is pretty much there. When you get married, you pay thousands of dollars to have someone come with their giant lens and take these great macro shots of you and your wife. That person owns those photos. And while they're your photos, they're not really your photos. You have the exclusive right to buy as many copies of them as you want from the photographer, but the photographer owns the pictures. Microsoft works the same way. You have Microsoft Office on your computer, but you don't own Microsoft Office. Microsoft still does, for licensing. Next one, subscription. Okay, if licensing is taking away content, subscription is tapping into content. You never own the songs in Spotify. You subscribe to the right to listen to them, but you do not ever own them. We'll come back to Netflix. Pay per use. MailChimp, after 50,000 emails or something like that, starts charging you per every email sent. Pay per use. When you buy on demand at home, when you pay for your movie, that is you pay every time you purchase. Lending, renting, or leasing. This is Netflix's old business model. Now, if you guys use Netflix where you used to rent a DVD, you would watch it at home, then you would send it back to Netflix. Now Netflix is slowly pivoting from that old business model into the subscription service business model. A good example of how you guys can switch those around. Alright. And then freemium. Freemium is not a business model, in my opinion. There are some people who would argue with me, but it's not a business model. What freemium is freemium is a way for you to attract enough people that some of them will pay you what we hope is enough money to cover the costs of having everybody else. So, Farmville, freemium, you don't have to pay to use Farmville. However, in Farmville, there are a group of people who I would love to meet who are willing to pay money, real money, to buy fake things that exist in a fake world. I don't understand it, but apparently it works. So virtual goods. Spotify, premium plus subscription. So you see what we're getting at here. None of these are mutually exclusive. You can use all of them in conjunction with others. And some oftentimes facilitate others, or MailChimp, which we already talked about. You start for free up through 50,000, and then you pay a usage fee. They also have a different business model that is premium services, which I don't think we have a slide for here. But premium services is the idea that you can also pay MailChimp an additional amount of money to remove their logo from your email, so that way they look more like they came from you and not from MailChimp. So, combinations. All right, next point of business, unique value proposition. I think Carmen's going to get into this a little bit more detail. I think that the most important takeaway here from this is different is not good. There is good different and there is bad different, and just because you're different doesn't mean that you provide value. So when you come up and you have your great innovative idea, it doesn't just not have to be a copycat. It has to be a not copycat or an innovation or something that really adds value to people who are going to use it. Another point that, if I'm stepping on anyone's pitch prior to them giving it, I apologize. There's nothing less exciting than when someone says, I am the Airbnb for pigs or for whatever. I am the X for Y has got to be the most, if you open with that, even if your idea is really good, it doesn't sound like it offers a lot of value. It sounds like it's one business model applied to a different sector, which is often good business, but it doesn't make for an exciting pitch. Okay, and unfair advantage. We see a lot of teams, especially a lot of teams who are just starting off, and you're going to compete with Google in something. What is my unfair advantage against Google, right? Google is a monster, and they're huge, and they're I don't know what, and they have all the power and the money and the ability and the best minds in technology. How are we ever going to compete? Areas for unfair advantage. Your team being the first. Also, being small and unfair advantage is you are going to be able to pivot and change way faster than they are, especially if there's a giant that's developing something at the same time as you're developing it. Trust me, you'll get there faster. You might need to get a lot of money to get there faster, but you're capable of getting there faster and with more agility than a monster is. Other things, your approach. There are many different ways to attack a problem, and just because someone else is doing it a different way doesn't mean that their way is the best way. Your mentors can be a source of unfair advantage. Your access to capital, maybe you're hooked in with the CEO of maybe you're not, but if you are, that's an unfair advantage. And being the first mover. The first mover advantage isn't the best unfair advantage to have, but if you're the first person who's doing something in a certain way, that is an advantage, as long as you get it done real fast and well, and make lots of money doing it, become an established name, and don't let anybody else come in and step on your territory, and don't lose out to a big giant. As long as you can do all of those things, being the first is an unfair advantage. Okay, market. Big ass market. No one wants to hear that your market is Spain. You can start in Spain, but your market is never Spain. Don't let your market ever be Spain. That bores everyone except for some Spanish investors. But that shouldn't be your entire market. Think bigger than that, and once you think bigger than that, know everything about them. Know who they are, how they act. Actually, we'll do this better. We'll do this with an example. Do you guys know who Nona Box is? Izanami? She's floating around many of the entrepreneurial events in Madrid, and her business model is she sells monthly boxes to expecting mothers and mothers when they have their babies. So every month a box comes and it's either got stuff for you to care for yourself while you're preggers, or stuff to care for your baby when your baby is born, and it's like a nice little surprise you get every month. So let's take that and make a practical example out of it. Who is the target? The target is expecting mothers and new mothers. How big is the market? Well, the market is, if we look, starting in Spain, is, what's the population of Spain?
44.
24?
44.
44, okay. So 44, small. 40, okay, I was going to say 42. So 44, 50% are women. So we're at 22. We'll round to 20 because it's a nicer number. And then out of which we live, what, an average of 80 years, of which time, well, no, here, let's do this better. 20 million, half of which maybe want to have kids at some point in their life, so now we have 10 million, and then the average lifespan is 80 years. People who want to have kids have an average of 2 kids. You maybe spend 5% to 10% of your life, 5% of your life in that window, so 5% of, what do we say, 10 is 5. No, I'm just kidding. 5% of 10 is 500, or 5% of 10 million is 500,000. So there's your target market in Spain. Take that, apply it across Europe. You have a big market. It isn't the biggest ads market in the world, but it's a good sized market. So that's a really quick way of figuring out how big your market is. Obviously, use the Instituto Nacional de Estadísticas, no sé qué. You have lots of good information there. But that's a good way of estimating who your market is. Next step, how do they act? What do pregnant ladies do? They go to the doctor, they go to Lama's class, they go get lots of vitamins, They go start shopping for baby things there. So know exactly how they act, where they are, and when they're doing it. Because that's going to help you answer the next question, which is, how do I get to that? Well, you go there. You put your ads, you get involved with blogs related to this, you go to those stores, you put your publicity there. You do everything that you possibly can, especially to get the people who already are at where they're going to and know how they act to help you promote your things. Every time you guys see one of those sign up a friend and get a month free or whatever, basically what the company is saying to you is that you bringing us a person, your month of subscription fee costs us less money than it does for us to go get them ourselves. So keep that in mind. Any kind of strategy that you guys can find to get close to your big ass market that doesn't require you going there yourself, but uses someone to help you, is going to put you way far ahead of the game. And yeah, that's that part. So how do I get them? Like we said, there's various ways to get there, but the more you know about how many they are, how they act, where they are, and what they're doing, the better that your marketing strategies are going to be, instead of just blindly throwing money into SEO and other such things. So SEO is great and cool. It's better to have an idea behind it and to do it a little bit more targetedly. I don't think targetedly is a word. All right, costs. There are three main cost categories. The first two, all of you guys are going to have in common and you're going to share. Those are startup costs. That is the capital social that you have to put into the business in order to launch it. That's the lawyer, always, or rather, never go cheap on the lawyer. A very solid percentage of startups fail because of problems within the co-founder. Have a good papo de socios. If this is your baby and you want it to live and you think it has a future, have a good papo de socios and write it, make it, sign it, talk it out, hash it out while everyone is still friends. Because legal paperwork isn't there for when everything's good, it's there for when everything goes bad. And then registering your marca, your brands, things like that, those are startup costs. Buying your domain, those are all startup costs. Everybody has them, there's no way to get around them. Second costs are operational costs. Stuff like your employees, your office, your utilities, etc. Those are all common. And then the third are the variable costs. And the variable costs are going to change based on what your business model is, which is the point of talking about business models. The variable costs of advertising are very different than the variable costs of asset sales, because when you're Amazon, you have to deal with logistics and shipping and warehousing and stuff like that. So know and understand what your business model is, and then understand the costs that go into doing that. Because then we start to make money. Okay, so revenue is kind of the conclusion of everything that comes before it in the business model canvas. Because with revenue, the first part, how do we make money? How do we make money? You've already figured that out because you already know what your business model is, right? How long? This is when you're figuring out your lifetime value. You want to know how long people are on average customers. This is something that a lot of people struggle with. I feel like Starbucks' customer lifetime duration is like years. Yeah?
We haven't explained to them what's lifetime value.
Oh, lifetime value is equals for every user you have, you are going to make money off of them. In our example that we had before, or any example, if you are Spotify, then for every premium user, so for every premium user that you have in Spotify, we pay $10 or 10 euros a month to access our music. More users, more money, right? But at some point, people stop being users. So what you need is a reliable estimate of for how long someone might be a user. In the case of Starbucks, this is years. In the case of the project we were talking about before, people don't stay pregnant forever, thank God. So this is going to be possibly, if we start from when you're pregnant, maybe an average of 2 years, right? So you start a little bit before you have the baby, it's cute and novel when you have the baby, and then you become a baby expert and you're like, I don't need this box anymore. I know what kind of diapers I like now. So then this is 24 months in that case. So that would be the lifetime value of a user who is an expecting and or mother with child. 240. So, how do we make money? How long we make money? How much money? How much money, which is this part, which is if you've done if you understand your market and you know how much people are willing to pay for this, and you understand your unique value, so you know what value it is that you add to that market, you'll have more or less an idea of how to price correctly, or because you've already done a very nice competitor analysis when you were figuring out other people's solutions to your problems, you know how much they're charging. Pricing is a huge long topic for another day, but you'll have some idea of how much to charge, which is that part right there. And then when you know how long, and how much, you multiply how much money times how long, you're going to have how much money you make for every person. And then when you've done your big ass market analysis and you know how many people, then you multiply this by how many users you have, and you get revenue. Obviously this is total revenue, you can have monthly revenue, weekly revenue, yearly revenue, etc. But this is the concept of revenue. So the point is that everything you've done before helps you to figure out this. And then, of course, you have your costs, which you figured out in the last part, and you take your costs out, and this is how much money you make, profit. And that is the basis of all finance, which I think you guys are going to talk about in more detail. Yeah, which I think you guys are going to go into more next week. Fran, were you going to do break even?
It's not in my presentation, but.
All right, Carmen, you want me to do break even really quick in 10 minutes?
Okay, go on.
All right.
But not 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
5 minutes? All right.
And we will have Fustigado explaining metrics. So you are going to hear about customer acquisition cost and lifetime value like a million times during this edition. Don't worry.
The more times you hear it, the better it's going to stick in your head. But if you guys want to do yourself one favor, just read 5 blog articles about it this week and then get it to start sticking, because once you start hearing it, you're never going to stop hearing it. Okay, so really quick. You have 2 kinds of costs. You have, right here, let's just do an example. All right, I sell, what do I sell? What do I want to sell? Ducks? I sell ducks. I sell ducks for $5 each, okay? $5 per duck. Each duck costs me $4. Cost duck. This is called a variable cost. I pay $10 per month for my office, my employees, they're slaves. We don't pay them well. My office, my employees, my cell phone, and whatever else in this fantasy world that I live in with my fixed costs are $10 a month. Fixed costs. This is what we call operational costs before. Alright. How many ducks do I have to sell to make 0 profit? Alright, how much profit am I making per duck? 5 times 4 is? 1. Good. How many ducks do I have to sell per month to get to 10? 10. Good. So, when I get to the point when I am selling 10 ducks a month, I am making $0 profit, right? Every additional duck I sell after that, I make $1 each more. When you hit 0, you're at break even. Here's a question. If I am on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, I sell 1 duck, 2 ducks, 3 ducks, 4 ducks, 5 ducks, and 6 ducks. I made that more confusing than it needs to be. When do I reach break even?
In the fifth.
Wrong. Because every single one of these months, prior to getting to here, I'm losing money every month. Because if I sell 1 duck, I've made $1. But I have $10 of sunk costs. So really, this month, I lost $9. This month, I lost 8. This month, I lost 7. This month, I lost 6. This month, I lost 5. This month, I lost 4. So I still haven't hit break even yet. Okay? So there's 2 ways to measure break even. You can measure break even in number of ducks. I need to sell 10 ducks a month to reach a monthly break even, or I need to sell a total of considerably more ducks to reach break even in general, or you can measure it over time. In month 18, I'm going to reach break even. So when people ask you about break even, they're either talking about a number or a date. Okay? And that's the basic concept of break even. When people ask you for it, this is the information that they're looking for. Okay? So that's a very basic overview of what it is. And really quick, interesting point, if you sum up all the money you lose every single month, that's how much investment money you should be asking for. Because these are all the costs that your investment dollars are going to need to cover until you get to the point where you have a sustainable business. So when people say that they want to raise $200,000, most of the time they just make up a number and they ask for it because that's what they think they should be asking for. But in order to justify what you're asking for, these are the numbers that you look at. Okay? And it's the total of all of them is more or less what you should be asking for. And that's pretty much it. If I guess just in summary, don't write a gazillion page document before you have to. Really think through this. And if you think through things in this way, most people come up and they're like, my startup is I want to create a social network for rollerbladers.
No, that was last year.
That was last year.
Have social networks.
Thank God I hate social networks. Anyway, don't come up and say what you do. And don't think about your project that way. Have a really good problem that you want to solve and that you're passionate about solving. And once you have that mentality, it's going to be much easier for you to change. It's going to be much easier for you to say, maybe this part of the problem is that bigger problem, but there's a different problem that is. Or maybe this isn't the solution, but this part is. Or maybe this isn't the right way to approach it, but this is. And the more you have that mindset, the more flexible you're going to be. And that's the whole idea of not doing a business plan, is because once you write 40 pages of what your startup is, you feel very locked into that mentality and you feel like you're stuck with it. The whole idea of the lean startup canvas and the idea of continually iterating is that you don't have to feel that way and that you can change more quickly, more agilely, and then you can have a product that's better positioned to solve the world's problems and create world peace. Okay? All right, thanks guys.